Hello everyone, this is Joshua Smith of Apollo's Artifacts. It is still August of 2019. I'm going to change up a bit here from the Epstein saga and talk about a Wall Street Journal article, which unfortunately I can't show you all of here, but I happen to have a print copy of it. The title is California's Biggest Cities Confront a Defecation Crisis. Lawmakers ban plastic straws as a far worse kind of waste covers the streets of San Francisco and LA. By Charles Kessler. And this is just a perfect way to sort of encapsulate and show an example of what happens when you begin to more fully institute left-wing policies. They have absolutely disastrous effects on society. Among the reasons why this is the case is because left-wing policies constantly try to remove two things that are absolutely critical to a household, to a city, to a business, to a team, or anything else that you want to function appropriately. So those things that they try to remove are accountability and responsibility. And in this situation, you'll see perfectly that they absolutely do not take accountability or responsibility for what is taking place in the city, and they also don't want to put any of this accountability or responsibility on the homeless people at all. They basically want to look upon them as some sort of sad sack toys. Toys that can't do any better, but also toys that are not to be blamed for anything else that they do either. It begins here. They say there's a smartphone app for everything, and doubters should know there are now at least two dealing with excrement on the sidewalks of San Francisco. The city has its official SF311 app, part of its San Francisco at Your Service program. And last year, a private developer introduced Snap Crap, which allows residents to upload a photo of an offending specimen directly to the SF311 website. This alerts the city's new 5-person, quote, poop patrol, which will follow up presumably with a smile. Then there are the maps. At least 3 maps charting the location of, quote, poop complaints in the city have been assembled, the latest and best by the nonprofit Open the Books. Their map shows most of the city covered in brown pen dots, each marking a report to the Department of Public Works. The website, RealtyHop.com, dubbed San Francisco, quote, the doo-doo capital of the U.S., end quote. They noted that the city's poop reports almost tripled between 2011 and 2017. They go on to point out here, after speaking with a person with Curbed SF's leadership, who then admits that it's primarily a problem created and caused by the homeless population within San Francisco, which numbers approximately some 10,000 persons, but for Los Angeles, some 36,000 persons. In fact, as it says here, a majority of the nation's homeless people live within the state of California. That would be because of the left-wing policies. It's basically an open-door policy that invites anyone and everyone. And they're all too ready to give away this, that, and the other. The article also points out here that you can even go back into the 1930s of the United States, when unemployment rates were as high as 25% and vagabonds were roaming all about the country. There were shanty towns and Hoovervilles, but still yet there was no huge problem with human populations pooping in the streets. They had more decency and more respect then than they have now. No one cares anymore, and it's because the left has told them, you don't have to care. We'll pat you on your little head and say it doesn't really matter. It's all somebody else's fault. And the article also points out, and correctly so, that these homeless populations are absolutely riddled with mental illness and drug abuse problems, two things that very commonly go together. But what you will notice is that the wealthy people who live in San Francisco and in Los Angeles do absolutely nothing to solve this homeless population crisis. You don't see them getting on Twitter talking about how they're going to set up some sort of an organization to bring in the mentally ill, to get them off drugs, and to help them. They spend all of their time griping about what Donald Trump says. And then he makes a really good point here in this next paragraph. It says, in California, at least, one is struck by the contrast between the fastidious attention paid to the social duty of scooping up and disposing of dog feces, and the rather more paralyzed and guilty reaction to the plague of human feces. The former is treated as a moral imperative among the enlightened, and the thin plastic bags used as a means to this moral end have so far escaped the fate of plastic straws, well on their way to being outlawed as an environmental outrage. Even social justice warriors don't consider it their personal duty, however, to tidy up after their fellow human beings who are pooping in the streets. And really, this is just among the tip of the iceberg problems that are created by political leftism. Leftism absolutely misunderstands human motivations, and leftists, almost to a person, have absolutely no understanding whatsoever of economics. I have a couple of episodes of the show that can enlighten on both of those fronts, and I'll link those below. Among the most important of which would be Henry Hazlitt's book called Economics in One Lesson. It was one of the first major works that I was exposed to that really started to wake me up from my leftism. Once I started to see on paper how left-wing ideas instantiated in the form of economics absolutely could not possibly work, not even in theory, much less in practice, then I began to snap out of it. And most decidedly, even though I am a libertarian, specifically an anarcho-libertarian, one thing that I realize, which is very, very clear, is that this is not a red state problem. This is not a red city problem. It is not a red county problem. This is very specifically a big blue city problem, all the way through and through. But anyway, I encourage you to check out the full version of this article. I wish that I could show it to you here. I was able to get it in another location, and perhaps I should do an entirely separate episode about the rat infestation problem that not only plagues Baltimore, but Los Angeles as well. But you can go straight down the line through all of these big blue cities: Chicago, Detroit, Memphis, Atlanta. They all have the same kinds of problems, and they all are traceable back to Democrat Party policies. The idea is that you can just tax and spend, borrow and borrow and borrow more money. You cannot borrow your way to wealth. It is impossible. And the type of borrowing that they do is really just a penalty on all of the people who live there and who pay the taxes. So sure, you'll get the glitz and the glamour, you'll get the big, bright, pretty lights and all of this other sort of stuff. You know, you'll have your little performing arts centers, and you'll have your aquariums, and you'll have all these nice things where people go to the concerts and the football games and all this other sort of stuff. But every bit of that is built on debt. Loads and loads and loads of pilfered wealth from other people who actually earned it. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.